face. Four walls, a locked door, my own space. I didn't know safety was just a word till I heard that sound, the worst I've ever heard. Someone thinks they have the right to take what's mine without a fight. Tiffany knew it in that hallway light. Not tonight, not my life, not tonight. When you're home, you should be safe, not fighting for your life in your own space. But she stood up, she didn't run, she held her ground till the fight was done. A survivor isn't a name you're given, it's a war you win to keep living, whatever it cost or whatever it took. She wrote her own ending, not his, her book. Not his, her book. They think the door's an invitation, think our fear is their permission. But every woman who stood her ground turns the terror into a warrior's cry. Tiffany's name is more than a headline, she's proof that a survivor draws the line. Oh, someone thinks they have the right to take what's mine without a fight. Tiffany knew it in that hallway light. Not tonight, not my life, not tonight. When you're home, you should be safe, not fighting for your life in your own space. But she stood up, she didn't run, she held her ground till the fight was done. A survivor isn't a name you're given, it's a war you win to keep living, whatever it cost or whatever it took. She wrote her own ending, not his, her book. Not his, her book. What happens when the one place built to hold you gets broken into by someone who thinks he owns you? She didn't ask for this, nobody does, but she answered anyway. With everything she had, that's not victimhood, that's a war. And she won. When you're home, you should be safe. No one gets to steal your space. She stood up, she didn't run, she fought until the fight was won. Survivor's not a soft word, it's a war cry. She looked him in the eye and refused to die. Tiffany fought for a right to live, and she's still here. She's still here to give her voice to every woman in the dark who has to fight to keep her heart. She had the right to fight for her life. She is a survivor. She won the fight.
Live on the air, Trial Junkies United presents Justice After Dark with your host, Z.
To be here. Hey everybody, we have Irish Luna Fairies with us, keeping us safe. Hey Dawn from Southern Gal True Crime. We're so happy you're joining us, and to all you lurkers, come on into the chat room, make a comment or two. We don't bite, I promise. But hey Semi, there's our other mod. But greetings to all my trial junkies, my truth seekers, and my justice warriors. I'm Z, your storyteller in the wilderness of injustice, with my ride or die doc riding shotgun as we navigate the dark corners where the predators hunt and the system looks away. Every case we cover is a person. It's not just a headline. And if we don't tell the real stories, the hard ones, the ones that the system would rather bury, nothing changes. Every predator depends on your silence. We're not giving it to them. And that's why we're here. Now, tonight's a different kind of a file because we're not going to go into a cold case exactly. We're opening with two people who have lived through something most of us pray we never have to, and who turn what happened to them into something for this whole community. So buckle up. Doc, are you ready to ride with me?
Most certainly.
Thank you, my love. Tonight, I've got two guests sitting with me, and I'm going to keep my part of this really short because this is my story to tell. It's theirs. Tiffany is a survivor of a home invasion, and that's a sentence that sounds small until you understand what actually lives inside it. The sound of a door coming in and checking for everything you thought you could count on disappears. And then the years after, figuring out how do I keep on feeling safe while living my life. Tiffany's here tonight to tell that story in her own words, and I'm not going to get in front of it. I'm going to ask her questions and let her just tell us the story. And y'all recognize Raymond. He's been here with us before. He's sitting beside her. Some of you already know him. He told us about his beautiful sister, Cynthia, and losing her to people who thought they had the right to take her life. Out of that grief, though, like a phoenix rising from the ash, Raymond built something. Stand strong together, right there in Parker, Arizona, standing up against exactly the kind of violence that put Tiffany in this chair tonight with us. Tiffany and Raymond, thank you for trusting us with your stories and with the audience. So welcome. I'm glad you're both here.
Thank you.
Tiffany, how are you doing, sweetheart? You okay?
Yeah. Why do I look frozen?
You look just fine,
Yep.
sweetie. Sleuthy Sweetheart just joined us, so we're going to have a good time. So, Tiffany, you're not originally from Parker, Arizona, are you?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay. Where was your original home?
Well, I spent most of my life in California, but my original home is I was born in Miami, Florida, on the Seminole Reservation there.
Okay.
And I moved to California probably around the age of 8 or 9, something like that, around 8 or 9 to California.
Okay. And I thought that was interesting because, like I told you when we had our conversation, so far we haven't got to talk to anyone from the Seminole tribe. So,
Yeah.
hey, welcome. And she's got, on your mother's side, though, it's First Nations Cree, right? From
Yeah,
Canada.
she's from Canada, British Columbia. Her family
Yeah.
lived in British Columbia, Vancouver Island, in that area. She was born in British Columbia.
So how did you end up in Parker, Arizona?
Oh, I had a friend that had been inviting me out to move out here for years. And in 2009, my one and only child had passed away, and I was going through a really hard time. And then in 2013, when my daughter's father and I split up, I decided that, that would be the time that I decided I was just called my friend. And ironically, his name was Raymond too. And I said, hey, does that offer, still stand for, the invite to come out there and live? And he was like, yeah, come on out. He goes, there's lots of jobs. He goes, you could live like in Big River, California, be home and visiting your family in 4 hours, 4 hours you'll be back, visiting your family in Temecula. And so I made the decision to move out here. And I was really glad that I did it because I never knew anybody who had ever lost a child. It was always like me. And when I came out here, and my mom also, she didn't, I come from a family of 5 children. I'm the oldest. And my mother never raised us on a reservation. She just didn't want that kind of life for us. She wanted something better. And
Right.
I never knew what it was like here. But when I came out here and I started living out here, I was meeting other women who had lost children too. And it really helped me a lot because it made me feel like that I wasn't the only one or I wasn't alone. And I could talk with these women about the grief of, losing a child. And it helped me. And it really helped me heal a lot, like, meeting women who have lost, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids, 6 kids, that they lost all their kids, So it helped me a lot with a lot of healing, gave me a lot of identity. of I guess not really. I know more about the tribal members here than I really know about my own my own traditions.
Because you left so early.
Yeah, and my mom never let us practice them. Like, we don't know my sisters. We don't make fry bread and tortillas. We don't
Yeah.
make that. And she never taught us. And she went to a boarding school in Canada herself. And she came from a family of 8 children. And it didn't matter your economic background. My grandpa was a doctor. He was a cardiovascular specialist that time. It didn't matter,
Wow.
what your economic background was. Your children went. They went no matter what. You didn't have a choice.
Oh,
And
that's terrible.
yeah, and if you didn't, if your children didn't go to boarding school, you would have problems with the authorities. So they
Yeah.
went, and so all my aunts and uncles and my mom, they all went, and they don't really talk about things that went on there, but they were only there for a little over a year. And when it came time to have a visitation with my grandparents, when they had visitation with their children, my grandpa and grandma had already made arrangements to go to the States. They call it the States. They don't call this place the United States. They call it the States. That's how they
Okay.
refer to it. And my grandpa got a job at Camp Pendleton. It was like the first job he could go work at and be a doctor. So they basically kind of like, if you want to say, they didn't do anything illegal. It was illegal for them to take the kids out of the boarding school and not return them, but they didn't do anything illegal when they came over to the United States and, here the States, and then live here, raise their,
Right.
because I have an uncle that's 13 years younger than me, or older than me. So they came out here and they were raising their children and just like carrying on, life back to as normal as possible after the experiences that they had at the boarding school. My mom had told me terrible stories about how the nuns would steal their clothes and steal they would get money and stuff from my grandparents, but the nuns would take the money. And I had an uncle, the baby in the family, the uncle that's 13 years older than me, because my mom had me when she was 16. The uncle, he was left-handed, so they put a rubber band, around his wrist to cut off all the circulation to his hand to force him to be right-handed. And I guess that was like the kind of the final straw for my grandma and grandpa, where they were like, they fled basically. They pretty much left everything behind, loaded everybody, and
So you can kind of tell, even though they weren't there for a long time, it really shows how it affected them for your mom not to really know the traditions and to
Mhm.
follow them. She wanted you to have a different kind of life,
Yeah,
which
she,
is,
yeah,
so that's
She wanted us-
understandable.
she wanted us to have an education and more, just she wanted us to have better
Yeah.
than what she was dealing with when she was growing up on a reservation, how it was, because they're all the same pretty much. It's all the same violence and everything goes on, even in Canada, the same thing, the same type of stuff. And and there's the movement, the first the 215 the first 215 children that they found in Canada, which I think were British Columbia, and that they found the unmarked graves of those children too.
Kamloops.
Yeah, Kamloops, yeah, and just it's a testimony for what it was like even there, So.
Oh, exactly. Yeah,
Mhm.
and we've talked about, I call them residential prisons because that's really what they were.
Mm-hmm.
You don't treat children like that.
Mm-hmm.
But so your friend then encourages you to come to the
Mm-hmm.
reservation. And like we were discussing earlier, you talked about how beautiful the area is, and you like it.
The river is beautiful. The water, the views. I mean, the sunsets. I mean, the sunsets are, I think, beautiful. Sunsets in California, but the sunsets here are even more beautiful than that. I lived in Massachusetts for a time. I mean, I've seen sunsets on the East Coast and the West Coast, and Arizona has the most beautiful sunsets. So really, really nice. Really nice.
And so while you're living in Parker, you started a job at St. Vincent de Paul, right?
It was a volunteer
Right.
position. Where I took that volunteer position, I was a cook. You know, it's your local soup kitchen where, you know, the homeless or, you know, people that don't have a lot of money, you know, would come in and sit and eat a meal. And, you know, you would see them there, of course, you know, but, and, you know, but once all the food and everything was cooked and all you had to do was make the trays of food, you know, and everything kind of settled down, you know, there was a window where you could look out and you could see, you know, everybody, and people would come up and compliment you like on the food, you know, if they liked it, you know, if they thought the food was good, they'd say, you know, the food was really good and I liked it. And you had people that would come in and had social anxiety disorders where they didn't like to be like around a big crowd of people. So they would come more towards the closing when it was quiet and, you know, nobody would be around.
And so that was a way for you also to get acquainted with a lot of the unsheltered people,
Oh
you
yeah, I
know?
knew all the homeless people in the community. I knew all of them, every one of them, even all the new ones that would come in, during the winter time, that would come in, you know, come through, you know, they'd all be from different areas of the United States, you know, coming through, and they would look for different soup kitchens, and that's kind of how they would eat. They would, you know, map out what they were going to do and be close to some place that would be near a soup kitchen. That's part of the reason why I think that the area of the soup kitchen was so popular. Like at first, I was like, wow, you know, there's a lot of people that come here to eat. Of course, the local people, but there'd also be people that came in that kind of reminded you of like gypsies, you know. And you know, you
Okay.
would learn over time that they would map it out. Like they would just go from one state to another state, you know, picking areas where they could go where they knew that they could get food,
Okay.
you know, to eat and get free food or get a hot meal or get out of the heat, you know, being in an air conditioned building. Because St. Vincent's had a dining hall. So it was kind of like a restaurant. So people could actually come
Okay.
in and sit down and eat and
And I and
a
I
meal.
think and I think that's something important to comment on is because, you know, if you've ever lived up north, you know, you deal with the extreme cold. But where you guys are located, it's the heat.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're unsheltered, you're looking for somewhere to go maybe sit for an hour or so
Mm-hmm. It
just to
was
cool
like
off.
kind of like a cooling station, kind of known as a cooling station that you could go there, and we always had Gatorade, bottled water. And then, of course, in the wintertime, people like to come in when it was cold. Not that it gets that cold here, but it does get cold. And they always liked that they
Yeah.
could come in and get out of the cold and have coffee and have a meal. And, you know, you'd always have the same people eating in there. So eventually, kind of like everybody in there kind of knows everybody. So they'd all kind of always sit, people always would sit in the same places and eat, kind of like with their friends. But um, after being there, because I was there for a total of 5 years. So after a couple
Okay.
years, I got to know the people that were homeless. You know, not know them, but they were, let's say they were acquaintances, let's say.
Right.
But they had a lot of love and respect for me because I remember they would say, "Do you get paid to do this?" And I'd be like, "No, it's free." And they're like, "Free? Like, do you're like here for free?" And I was a cashier at a grocery store here in town, and so sometimes I'd be in there in the morning cooking, and then I'd go right from St. Vincent's at 1:30, go clock into my job at 2 o'clock, and they come in and they're like, you know what? And I knew they said, hey, I got to the point where they're like, if you ever need anything, just ask. So I knew that when there was like some kind of gossip or something that was going on, I could ask them kind of like what the truth was, like what was really going on, you know, what was like, what's the truth, you know, and it was
Yeah.
kind of like an information highway, I guess you could say, with the information that they knew. And that's how
So
I
you
learned about some of the things that I learned about the event, like that what happened with a friend of mine. Like I learned about like what had happened to her or going to the whole, you know, the homeless. I just basically was like, tell me what happened to this person or that
yeah.
person, you know, and
So
you hear about
so
it.
you built up relationships with a lot of these people and you knew them. And
Yeah.
so let's take you to that day you said and we're going to call the well, he was the person that the perpetrator. The perpetrator we're going to call Jay. So
Okay.
you knew who Jay was.
Yes.
because he came in to the soup kitchen.
And he was one of the ones that had the social anxiety, that
Okay.
he'd like to come in a little bit just before closing. And of course, by that time, food service is almost done. We're kind of cleaning up. And he always would ask for special, like certain items, like shampoo, deodorant, socks. And but he liked it. I think that he liked it that it was more like one-on-one attention that I could give him, because I had more time, because of course I had other volunteers that were there too that helped in the kitchen. And they would, like you'd have one person, all they want to do is wash dishes when they're there. They don't want to cook. They don't want to do anything. So it was like a time where it just slowed down, and you could go out and sit in the dining hall with some of the people that were eating there, and just kind of just sit down with them for a minute and take a break, and, ask them how they're doing, and, do you need anything? And this particular Jay, he was one that always needed socks or maybe shoes or whatever. And I would, do my best to try to accommodate him. And of course, there was other volunteers there too that would also, whether or not he really had social anxiety, I don't know. Whether, maybe he was just trying to manipulate a situation where he could have his one-on-one attention with people. But he would always come in like maybe 30 minutes before we would close.
Yeah. And Ray, that's something in the community, you see a lot of the unsheltered too. And you get to have a relationship with these people as acquaintances, get to know some of them. And there are times that they do reach out to certain people, right?
Yes. Yes, they do. I have a few family members that they have places to stay, but they rather be out there kind of wandering around.
Yeah.
And like she said, they have their own little set of rules, or it's a whole little community within itself. And when they reach out for help, they'll text me. My cousins will text me, or I'll have a community member that will text me and tell me, hey, this person, needs something. You think you can help him? And I get a message from a lot of people. I have a lot of silent supporters in the county, and they like to remain, silent and anonymous.
Right.
And but I have a lot of supporters, and they'll let me know what's going on. And like, for example, before I got to know Tiff was a big supporter of Stand Strong Together. She'd go to all the events and everything, and so she wouldn't offer up information. I would just talk about something, and then she would listen and then kind of correct me of what something she heard. So
sorry.
Yeah.
yeah. So you know what I mean? Like the story would start veering off a little bit, and then she'll stop me because she was right in there in the mix of all of it. So
yeah. She had a front row seat.
Yeah.
She had a front row seat, which helped. So that day, Jay, he had a bicycle, right?
Yeah. On I was barbecuing outside, and he drove by on his bike, and I was kind of like, oh man, now he's gonna know where I live. And he asked me if he could have a piece of chicken because I was barbecuing, and I'm like, well, it's not ready. I can't give you anything. And he goes, okay, all right, whatever, and just took up on his bike. And then he came back at 11 o'clock at night, knocking on my door, asking, hey, I didn't open my door. I talked to him between me and the door. And I go, no, the chicken's all gone. And he was like, okay, whatever. And I said, yeah, well, I'll see you down there at Vinny's, thinking I'll see him down at St. Vincent's. And on Tuesday, because would be the next time that I would be over there, and it was open. And I saw him down there, and he acted like, he normally did. And then literally a week after, we were open Tuesdays and Thursdays, literally a week after that, and he was at my door on May 21st, 28th, 2021. He pulled my trailer door open towards him, popped the door open, and he was in my trailer, and I was asleep. And he was on top of me, like straddling on top of me, and just punching me. I just woke up to like a really vicious attack.
Yeah.
And seeing stars, like just I never got hit so hard that I never got hit, hit where I saw stars. Never got assaulted like that by anybody ever, to the point where, he knocked my tooth out. And of course, when someone's in your house, what's your natural reaction is to start. And at first, I didn't know who he was. It wasn't all clicking. It just everything was happening very fast, and I wasn't clicking with who he was. And then all of a sudden, it hit me like who it was. And I just started yelling at him, cussing at him. I think like anybody would do, just get the F out of my house. Just get the F out of here. What are you doing here? And saying, Jay, just leave, Jay. And all of a sudden, he just reached back from his back. And I was just watching him. And all of a sudden, he just, came down. He just whipped his arm out. And there was just a big knife just pointed right at me. And that's when I was like, oh, I just got to stop saying anything. Don't do anything to provoke him and make him any more angry, than he already was. And it didn't even really look like him. I think he had to be on methamphetamines and maybe alcohol. And so finally I struggled around with him, and there's like in my trailer, fifth wheel, it's really small. So between my bed, there's my bed, and then there's my dresser. And then between me and my dresser, my bed and my dresser, there's about a hallway that's probably about that, about that wide, where you have a hallway and you could walk right into the bathroom. And we struggled around, and somehow I was just sitting up, and he was standing on this side of me. And I just all of a sudden just started yelling at him, just Jay, go, just go, Jay, just go. And I was just pointing at the door. And then he just put he put the knife down by his side, and he stepped over me with his legs. And as he was walking out to get to the door, he passed by the refrigerator, and he said, "No cops." He's like, "No cops." He's like, "Do you hear me?" And he was like cussing at me, saying, "No effing cops. If I hear you call the cops, I'll be back here, for you." And he took the knife and he stabbed the refrigerator with it. Okay. And he took off. And of course, immediately, I called the police, and, he knocked my front tooth out. That's how hard he hit me. Literally, my whole front tooth was gone. After the attack, and my nose was just running all blood down. It was all my pajamas. And, of course, the first thing I did was, I called the police. I got my phone and I called the police, and they were all coming over. And Parker PD, Sheriff's Department, and Crit Police, they all knew me from Food City. So, they heard my name over the radio. So, I don't know if they all, I don't know if they came because they knew me, but they all came. They were all there. And, after the police and everything, I didn't even know my tooth was missing until I was I was licking because my lip was really cut inside. And I was like, shit, well, damn, my tooth is missing. So I looked for it, and I found it on the ground. It was on the ground by where my bed was, down the little hallway. My tooth was right there. So then, the police came, and when I told the police about who it was, they were like, you know what, we've already had an issue with him already tonight. They had already had a conversation with him already.
Oh,
I guess apparently they go, yeah, he's acting up, and and they go, don't, we're going to go look for him and everything, and then of course I they called an ambulance, and I went to the hospital, and got a head x-ray, different things that you go through after a beating, and came back home, and for 2 days they couldn't find him. But once that first night, I slept on my floor of my trailer right by the door because I was so afraid he was going to come back.
Yeah.
And I took a bunch of bungee cords, and I'm telling you, I lived this the whole time that he was alive. I mean, the whole time his existence was around. I took bungee cords to where I wrapped it around my refrigerator. I never felt safe leaving my door open for fresh air ever again. It was gone. And I had set it up, or even I had a friend look at it and they go, yeah, if he comes in here, he's going to knock the whole refrigerator door, the whole fridge over. So you'll know, he's trying to get in, the refrigerator is going to fall to the side. So I lived that way for many years. I lived that way with my refrigerator, connected bungee cords and even rope, even a big rope,
wow.
Constantly living in fear, worrying about his family and what his family might do to me if I spoke about it or mentioned it to anybody, what had happened, my attack, because everyone here is related. And I think it was about 3 or 4, I don't know, well, maybe 3 or 4 months after my attack, I finally felt comfortable and I trusted Raymond. I trusted Raymond because he seemed so professional in what he was doing with MMIP. I never told Raymond this, but I never even knew a murdered person until Cynthia passed away. And I knew her, I knew her from Vincent's. I knew her from St. Vincent's. In Food City where I worked at, and I always called her Peanut because she's just a tiny little woman, just short and small and little bones and little wrists and just a little body, you know what I mean? And just the sweetest person. And she always showed me a lot of respect at St. Vinny's when I would see her. And even one time she was attending a funeral, and she wanted an outfit. And they had a free store in there where you could get free clothes at St. Vincent's, and they still do that. But she had picked out some stuff, and she went in and she tried it on, and she came out and was like, showed me how it looked on her and everything. So I never even like I said, I never knew anybody to be murdered. And Cindy was the first person that I ever knew, and it really broke my heart. And that's why I always supported Raymond, and Johnny, with anything, stand strong together. Maybe they might spread rumors about Raymond around town and to be vicious and vindictive, because maybe they're jealous of what he's doing, and they try to make him to look like some bad guy or however, and I just have always supported him. But I loved his sister. I really did. And I still do. And, of course she never deserved what happened to her, what happened to her. But that was and then Raymond had already started Stand Strong Together. I don't know, maybe like a year after she passed away. Did you start it? And so I wanted to be part of all that and support Raymond. And also that was my way of showing love for her.
Yeah.
It was
you were honoring her memory.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So once Jay they get him arrested, right?
They got him arrested and they took him to jail. They had him there, and they held him there for a month and a half. And that's when all my court stuff started going. But however he got out, somehow he got out. I don't know how he got out. The chief of police for the tribes called me and he said, "Hey, I just want to let you know that, he's out. So, just to give me a heads up that he was, that he was out." And then, I guess it was about, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks after Rosie had been murdered, they picked him up again and they took him in over at Crit Jail, and they were holding him there. And I think they were holding his brother too, because I think they were trying to involve his brother with her murder. And they didn't have enough evidence on her. But when they did,
Okay, let's stop for just a moment
Okay.
here, Tiff.
Okay.
So after your attack, Raymond, how long was it, do you know, from Tiffany's attack to when all of a sudden Rosie Romero disappears?
Rosie, when was yours? Because Rosie,
mine was May 28th.
yeah, Rosie was first reported missing, and when they finally found her, it was August of 2020.
Oh, so 2020, not 21.
Yeah.
I was wrong on the date, on the year.
Yeah. So it wasn't the same. I mean, it's when you think back about it without seeing dates and stuff, it was like they were like right there.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that happened to Tiffany. Tiffany was staying right across the street from me. And it was the family that reached out, the Rosie's family, that when this happened, they reached out, and we started speaking on her behalf and helped sharing information, and another member of Stand Strong Together, which her name is Carrie Burns. She was the one that pushed for Rosie for her to be filed as missing, and so everybody was looking for Rosie, and then all the rumors started. There's where Rosie was staying. It's on the backside of town. It's still in town, but in a desert area, and in that area, it's behind the motel, and there's a VFW right there. And so Rosie was staying in an area back there, and it was the members of the VFW, some which are ex-cops and police, chief of police.
Right.
They're the ones who actually reached out to me and were telling me, hey, you have to say something. And those were the names they're throwing there. They're like, it bothered them so bad. Like they were walking back and forth, like I got to get this off my chest. And so they were telling me, we're telling you because we know you'll say something.
Right.
And so I started speaking out for Rosie. And then that's when Tiffany told me what happened with her. And that's when both connected.
Because they suspected Jay once they found Rosie deceased.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
They suspected Jay of being the one to have harmed her. To have killed
Yeah.
her.
Because the whole homeless population, was talking about it. And that's when I first heard about, who was the suspect, was because there at St. Vincent's, the homeless people were talking about, that he was the one who had committed the crime and killed her. I mean, not just, killed her, but, cut her head off. Like, they cut her head off and he folded her in half and he put her in a storm drain. And I know without a doubt, that it's him. I could feel it in my gut. I just know it.
Yeah.
And
because the attack on you was after Rosie?
No, before.
Oh, before Rosie.
Yeah.
So that kind of shows you he had that predilection to harming women.
Yeah.
And he was kind of known in the homeless camp of kind of running things, right?
Yeah, he was like the boss, and he was the one that that intimidated everyone and beat people up, and like even when he would come to St. Vincent's, people were afraid of him, and there could be a person that was there, a guy that was there that hung out with Rosie. And it was Rosie and her boyfriend and this other gentleman. It was like those three were always together. And he's like a 300-pound guy, a big guy.
Yeah.
To be afraid of anyone. He was intimidated by Jay. He was intimidated
because Jay wasn't. He was like 5'5", right?
Yeah, he was like a little, like a wet, like a wet noodle. I mean, he was the tiniest person. Really like 5'5", maybe 150 pounds, maybe.
Well, it's like when we were chatting, I told you, like my mama said, that's that Banny Rooster syndrome,
Yeah.
where
Mhm.
they're ready to to go fight,
Right.
you know, and that's really what it is. Um, and so between they had let Jay out of prison or out of jail, and you didn't know why they let him out. They all suspected he harmed
Mhm.
Rosie, and then all of a sudden, after she's found, they decide to charge instead of charging him for anything for Rosie, they decide to charge him on your home invasion and attack.
Oh yeah,
Correct.
he had like a premeditated, like premeditated murder because he had been at my place a week before. Kidnapping. He like maybe like 7 or 8 different charges that they had him on. But when they were holding him for Rosie, they went. My attorneys and the FBI went and picked him up for my case, and off he went to start his trial and everything for my case. So,
Okay.
so he never, so and they said that they didn't really have enough evidence to really incriminate him, even though there was uh, just the whole homeless population was just talking that it was him, and there he had brought a knife into my home, and the knife had a purple handle, and apparently there was a purple knife that was found in the area where Rosie was residing.
Okay.
And when they showed me, and I've never told anybody, I've never told anybody this, but the they showed me the knife, and I was like, that's the knife that he was holding over me, that he was holding over me. So I mean,
It came from this. It looked like it came from the same set of
yeah,
knives.
right.
You know,
I mean,
and
there's not a lot of purple handled knives around,
yeah, and it
I mean,
kind of sounds to me like Ray. What are your thoughts? It sounds to me like maybe the cops weren't really going to jump on Tiffany's case until they couldn't get him for Rosie too, and then they decided, well, we'll push this one.
Well, my thoughts is that because of the jurisdictional confusion of
Okay.
tribal and state laws, that this is a bad habit that it's always on repeat here on the reservation. They always pick up somebody on the lesser charge and try to build on the big charge without charging them for the bigger one. And usually that's all they'll get is the little charge. And the big one is always hanging over their head, which is always homicide, rape, all that stuff. You'll see someone get arrested for something bad, for kidnapping, home invasion, or something, and they're out. Like the longest they can hold somebody, even for homicide, inside of the tribal jail is 1 year. After a year, they don't have anything else. They got to let them go, and so you see that happening time and time again. My cousin Albert Chavez, his suspected killer, who confessed to his son, was held, and his trial came up when he was like maybe 9 months into his sentence, and his trial came up for homicide. And even if he was found guilty of homicide in the tribal jail, he would still be out in 3 months anyways. So it didn't really matter if he was found guilty or not until the feds
Wow.
pick it up. And that's the law around here, that if the feds don't pick it up, that's all they can do is just 1 year. And it's happened time and time and time again. Mm-hmm. This reservation is there's murderers walking around. Everybody knows it too. Like I said, they call me Captain Obvious because our reservation is so calloused over. Like, I'll give you an example. Our tribal office and our police department are together, and it should be the White House, considered the White House of the reservation. This is where all the heads of power and everybody is at. All our tribal leaders are at. And right, like literally 50 yards away are operating drug houses the longest standing operating drug houses, and it's so sick that every election, those same drug houses will have political boards asking you to showing support for their family member that's running for a tribal council seat, and everybody's reservation is so callous. They've been trained to just, it becomes so normal. Even though every tribal council meeting, Facebook, we're always talking about the drugs, and we're pointing it out that the second that you mention it to non-tribals, like, hey, look at this is a drug house and there's a police station, then people start feeling dirty about it. Like, why is he saying that? And it's like, look, I'm not telling anybody in this town anything they don't already know. I'm just speaking it out loud. And when you speak it out loud, then they start feeling the shame, the dirtiness of it. Now, all of a sudden, these drug houses, they don't have you know what I mean? They take the political boards down, but it's too late. You know what I mean? Those drug houses are still there. They're still there, and their family members are still in tribal council. And so this tribe or this reservation has a big track record of shooters, of murderers, of drug dealers, all only getting charged with the most minor of crimes and walking on the big ones. And they do it over and over. And
is it because they don't have the authority for the big charges, or they just are lazy to charge?
Well, every election, I always have one of the candidates always come and they knock on the door and they ask me, they said, I'm gonna run for council. What is the biggest thing we need to work on? And we say it time and time again, your weak and outdated tribal laws. Meth is not a crime. You don't even test for the GSR in shootings. You don't test for gunshot residue. I mean, you could the tribal laws are so outdated. I'm pretty sure they have somewhere in there written that, you get a donkey and a coin, or a horse and a coin when you know what I mean? And every council, and that's the stepping stone. Every candidate that comes and wants to get elected, they all say the same thing. We're going to be tough on crime. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And it's the same repeating story over and over. We had one tribal council member where his son was murdered, and his son's murderer only got a year, and he got elected. He got elected with everyone thinking, oh, he's going to go in there, he's going to change everything. And nothing, absolutely nothing. The only thing they worry about, council members that are holding two positions. Are you getting two paychecks? They worry about the dog shelter. Is there proper lighting for the dogs? Are we getting per cap this year? They worry about everything else except for what tribal members are dropping dead over, which is the drugs and the murderers. They're worried about everything else except for that.
Are there some payoffs going on?
We've been saying it for years. I mean, this area is considered the high drug intensive trafficking area in the nation because of the road going from LA to Tucson and from Mexico to Vegas. This is the corridor right here, and you think that we have a sovereign, that our tribal leaders can make rules up. You think we would have the most harshest and stiffest penalties? I mean, ridiculous. Like if you get caught with a seed, you're getting 5 years. You know what I mean? That we'd have some type of law like that. We have the most lenient. I mean, we can sit here and get poster boards and go to I-10 and just with arrows pointing towards the reservation, we might as well and say, we don't test for gunshot residue. We don't arrest nobody for murder. We don't arrest, just come on over. And we point this out all the time. And it's why isn't that, you look and read about other reservations, their tribal council, when there's a fifth wheel that has cartel members or tribal members selling heroin and it's destroying that community. There's been articles of their tribal council members coming and all sitting there while they arrest everybody. Then the second they arrest everybody that was selling the heroin that was destroying their people, bulldozers came in and bulldozed that down to the ground so it can never operate again. You know,
Wow.
that's strong leadership.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
But when you talk to ours, they dazzle you with BS.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Well,
It-
it's got to go into this. We got to go into the AGs. We got to write legislation. And it's like, come on, man.
Pammy says we need more bulldozers.
Yeah.
But
Somebody,
one thing
I don't. This just smells the whole thing. Somebody's getting paid off. I mean, yeah, bottom
That's
line.
everyone's assumption.
Yep.
And I think
Well-
because the tribal laws are so like outdated, because I'm a non-tribal member here, so for my case for Jay, you know, he ended up serving 4 years. Had he served time for Rosie, it probably would have been a year, probably, if he
Well,
had been convicted of it, you know.
let me ask this: where are the tribal laws written? I mean, do they post these tribal laws? A lot of reservations do. You can get a hold of the tribal laws.
A couple of I'm going to say about 15 20 years ago, there was a council group back then that made it mandatory that any type of domestic violence call, both parties go to jail. And then they made it a rule that absolutely zero tolerance on any kind of methamphetamine, whether you come in under the influence or possession of paraphernalia. It's a mandatory 30 days. Nobody's getting OR'd. You have to stay in there 30 days. And then after that council left, every other council out there is sitting there saying, we can't. They change absolutely zero laws.
Mhm.
They speak these big words to basically just to tell you we're not changing the laws. We're going to try to, you know what I mean? And it's like, no, because there's already been a council way back then that did it. You know what I mean? Whether they were violating our sovereign rights back then, they did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it can be done.
Well,
And-
something that you had mentioned, Raymond, is that within, I don't know if it's within feet or within yards or less than a mile or whatever, but there's a known drug house right next to the authority where the authorities are. You know what's up with hey, come on, you guys can't get that taken care of,
Trip out on this. This house that we kept pointing out, that is that everybody in there, I mean, it had the whole layout. It's right there on the main road. People coming in and out. There's people walking around picking up everything that's white on the ground, picking up trash. People, just all the classic signs. And one of the council members went and investigated everyone's claims to see if it was a drug dealing house. He came back and cleared them and said, nope, everything's good. And about a month later, a murder happened in that house.
Mhm.
A murder happened over drugs, and they kept the body inside the house for hours trying to figure out what they were going to do before they finally figured out that there was. And then after that, the owners of that house asked for help to shut it down because they were done with it. So nobody's ever questioned this council member that went over there and cleared it. You know what I mean? You know how sometimes they say some people are so smart they're stupid?
Mhm.
This guy just wanted to shut everybody up. You know what I mean? And you ask me, these homicides that happened after he cleared it, he should be thrown off the council and charged for that.
Yeah.
But he's still on there right now. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, if you're so freaking blind that happened, that is all on you.
Mhm.
all of that happened is all on you. But he's still there. And I'm probably going to hear about it after this. But you know what I mean? It's like I said, I'm Captain Obvious. I'm only saying what everybody's thinking, what everybody knows. You know what I mean? Yeah. And this is common not in. So in respects to that regard, that drug house is now closed down and it's no longer a drug house. You know what I mean? So something got done, but it had to take a homicide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Tiffany, with your case with Jay, that went federal?
Yes. It went federal because I'm not a tribal member here.
Okay.
So I had attorneys in Florida. I had my Seminole attorneys, and then I had attorney advocates here in Arizona.
Okay.
That were also more my tribe was more or less overseeing everything, kind of filling me in on different things, information that they could get. I worked with them just because I wanted to work with them, but basically everything was falling on the FBI here in Arizona. And I worked diligently with them. Even my attorneys said, and I had 4 attorneys and 4 attorney advocates here in the state, and they said, we've never had anybody be working with us so well. Most times people would ignore the situation or whatever would go on, but they complimented me because once I had heard about Rosie, the same attorneys or the same detectives that were working on my case were working on her case. So anytime I heard anything, I would just call them up and I would say, this is what I heard. And they said, okay, we'll investigate it. Thank you for the information. And I guess the last time I had seen Rosie, I think was July 28th. And she was attending the same church I was attending. And the last time that I had talked to her, she just said, hey, sister, she said, it's just getting really bad out here. And she goes, it's just terrible. She goes, it's just awful. And I didn't ask her, any details about anything. I was afraid to tell her about Jay, and I'm going to live with it for the rest of my life. But I wish I would have said something to her but I was afraid that was her friend or her relative. And I didn't speak about it with anybody except when I finally told Raymond. I kept it to myself. My family knew, but that was the extent of it.
Well,
And,
but Rosie being, knowing the homeless community, I'm sure she knew he was bad news.
Oh yeah.
But she probably felt protected by her boyfriend and the other guy that hung out with her.
Yes.
And it sounds to me like somehow they got her separated from them and harmed her.
Yes. Apparently, from what I heard, what I had heard from the population that was coming to St. Vincent's, the homeless that were coming there, they were saying that it was over food stamps and that she had sold her food stamps and he wanted her food stamp card. Maybe he wanted the money too. But I guess, he had found out that the money was gone and people were saying that that's what the whole whatever transpired between them. That's what it was about. It was about, $300 worth of food stamps, basically.
And we'll say allegedly because
we don't know for sure, but
so we're talking that it's possible, it's allegedly that she died for $300 worth of food stamps.
Yeah. And so your case goes to court. Jay ends up in prison for 4 years.
Yeah.
Which, yay, at least they got him into prison. Now, he denied doing anything to Rosie.
Yes.
Never, ever said anything.
Yeah.
But then he gets out of jail.
Yeah. And when he was in prison, somehow he was making Facebook accounts. I don't know if they're allowed to have Facebook accounts or whatever, but I would always see him, I would always see him where suggested friends are, all of a sudden I see him there and I'd be like, hey, how the heck is he even managing this? But I would look at his photographs that he would post, and in the pictures, he had a teardrop tattoo on his eye. And it was like, it's like, yeah. I know what a teardrop tattoo means on an eye. And it's like, but to deny, that you hurt somebody like that, but then to have that tattoo, it's representing you did something to somebody,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
unless he was trying to look like a big, cool killer, whatever, in prison. And look like all he learned, and seems like in prison he got a lot of tattoos. The
So
judge,
he went to art class.
yeah, and the judge had asked me for my recommendations that I wanted. That like, what are you recommending for him? Like, what would you like to see happen? And he did. He completed all the recommendations that I had recommended. But it's like, and I was like, thinking, wow, maybe he's going to come out and, be a changed man. But it looked like, of course, when you saw the pictures of him, you could obviously tell with the tattoo work and everything, he wasn't changing at all. His perspective and his frame of mind, was still exactly the same.
Tiffany, what charges did they actually get him for?
A home invasion, attempt with a deadly weapon, attempted murder, premeditated murder, because the fact that he had been over at my trailer, they thought that he had already been at my trailer the week before. They thought that this was something he had pre-planned to do.
Yeah, that he'd staked it out.
Yeah, and he did plead guilty. He did plead guilty, but unfortunately, because at that time it was all COVID, he never got to the federal penitentiary. He was just being held in jail. So, because originally he was going to go away for 7 years, but because of all his jail time that he had served, he got a lot of credit for jail for time. So he only ended up serving. He served 4 years.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I would have seen 7 years, but it wasn't 7.
Yeah. And so when he got out, of course, you're nervous because now he's out, but they sent him to Phoenix, right? To a halfway house.
Right.
And he didn't last long in Phoenix, did he?
No.
Because in Phoenix, he wasn't the big dog like he was on the reservation where he was controlling things. And so he ends up being murdered in Phoenix.
Yes, he was beaten to death by a baseball bat and died in the street somewhere in Phoenix. And I like I said, when he got out of prison, my parents, said, please come home and everything. So I went back home to California, and I was living out there and living my life and whatever. And I got a message on Messenger from Raymond, like saying that, he's dead, like he's not alive anymore,
Yeah.
And I read it and I didn't even acknowledge. I just it went so far over my head. I thought, wow, man, is this a rumor? Is this a joke? I know Raymond would never say anything that he didn't know for certain without, for 100%. I know that he has his information right. I didn't even respond to it. I was just so I was like, huh? Huh?
Well, I'm sure it was hard to take it in that, and sadly, we wish that the legal system would have taken care of the correct charges to have kept him locked up. We don't, because his mother then eventually, she wants it acknowledged that he lost his life and wants him mentioned in the MMIP situation, which kind of makes it awkward for everybody else that's with the Stand Strong Together movement, because he was also a predator. So we can feel sorry for his mom for her loss, but he has to be held accountable for what he's done as a perpetrator.
Right.
So we want to be delicate in that manner, because we also don't want to make it worse for you guys living on the reservation that, there's any blowback, because we can sympathize with his mother for losing her child.
Right.
But that doesn't mean, we don't acknowledge what he did. He was a perpetrator. And if you hadn't been fighting him with everything you had, you might not be here to tell the story.
Oh yeah. I mean, I probably wouldn't be, alive today right now had I not. I felt like there were angels with me. And when I was sitting up in my trailer in my fifth wheel, I was just looking around in my trailer and like all the edges of my trailer inside, all I could see was all these holograms of like all these angels. And it wasn't angels with wings or, like smoke all around or anything. It was all these holograms of what looking back, it's like they were angels and that they were there, with me. And I felt the presence of my grandmother, and she was the one. I could feel her breath right on my cheek, and I could hear her saying, "Just say, tell him, get out." And I would just say, and I told him I would go. I just was like, "Get out," and she goes, "Louder." And I said, "Get out," and she goes, "Louder." And she just yelled, like I felt like I just could hear her in my ear, and she just yelled, "Louder." And that's what I just said, "Just get out." And that's when he just climbed right over my legs and just took off and went, right out the front door. I think about the intimidation that I feel and the fear I felt. And I feel like people know things about murders, but they're too afraid to come forward with the information that they know because they're afraid of retaliation.
Yeah.
I feel like that there's family members that know what happened to family members, but they're not saying anything because they already lost one family member and they don't want to lose another family member. They don't want to lose it. They've already had a family member that's deceased, and now maybe they're going to have their family member go to prison, so they'll protect them. Because, it's like you think people are your friends and you think people are your family, and they're not. There's people, the murderers are not. They're not your friends. They don't care about you. And if they get away with it one time, they're going to do it again. And, eventually they're going to get away with it. And, like Raymond's cousin is a perfect example of somebody, who got murdered, and the murderer goes to prison for 1 year. And guess what? Now he's right back here living in the community, living his best life here, with what he did. And is that somebody that you like sometimes I wonder, his brothers and sisters, they have kids, and it's like, is that somebody you're going to let your kid, that's their uncle, and you're going to let their uncle babysit after what he's done? I mean, he has an unpredictable personality, and that's I think how it is. And I think that people, family members and friends, I think these people, they do have this information but I think they're afraid. Like I've been afraid, I was afraid for a long time and never could speak out because I was afraid, oh gosh, somebody from his family is going to come after me. And now I'm at the point like, you know what? Hey, I don't care anymore. People need to know, what he did. And, I have people thanking me for that, people from here thanking me for giving them the information and telling me I never deserved it, and getting the support and that I've always needed. And
you didn't deserve it. You were trying to be kind. You worked volunteer. You communicated with him. You were kind to him. You were a survivor. You survived him.
The chat is filled with people that are just saying what a brave person you are, so how you're a strong woman for standing up and not being a victim. It's just that's great.
Exactly.
And it hurts me a lot, to know like what happened to Rosie, what happened to Shaggy, what happened to Albert, because I knew all these people. I knew all, and were they living the perfect life? Were they maybe doing things that they shouldn't have done? But haven't we all done things haven't we all done things when we're younger, things in our past that we're not proud of?
And just because you don't do anything a certain way doesn't mean you don't deserve justice, doesn't mean you deserve anything terrible to happen to you, because a lot of people we know rehabilitate themselves. They forgot the chance. Someone took And
And it's like,
that's the sad part.
and it's like, I want people, I hope if I can help somebody to come forward with the
Yeah.
information that they know. You don't want to live, you don't want to live your life uh, like with the guilt that I feel for not coming forward and talking to Rosie. Would it have saved her life? I don't know. I don't know if it would have changed anything that was going to be the outcome. But I mean, if people have information, please come forward, give people closure. Please give these mothers and these fathers and these, let them know what happened to their, missing children. And, like to me, it's like if you know anything, to me, it's like my attitude is I hope you have nightmares every single night. And I hope that you see that person that's gone in your dreams.
Yeah,
And
because if you're not speaking out, then you're kind of complicit in what happened.
right, yeah, and it's like you'll feel so much better when you confess what you know.
Yeah.
Just confess what you know, and it's all anonymous. I mean, nobody's going to know that it's you that's coming forward with the information. I mean, there's a hotline, a number you can call, an anonymous hotline. Come forward and tell the authorities this information that you know.
Yeah.
And so these people can be charged with these crimes that they're committing and not being, and being allowed to get away with it. I mean, how scary to know that here in this town of Parker, which, now there's a murderer running around loose here. And it used to feel like such a quaint place, like a really quaint place, a peaceful place. You could leave your car running at the grocery store, run in and get stuff, or leave your front doors unlocked. And it's like, but hey, if you got a murderer running around here in Parker, you better lock your doors because it's not a safe place. And they're ruining it. They're ruining it. They're ruining it for children. They're ruining it for families. It's just awful. And then, having to see these people around town, and it's like, you'd want to wear a T-shirt, just saying with their picture on it, and just saying,
we know what you did.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
But Raymond, take us back, because we know after you lost Cynthia, how that devastated you personally and your family. But what was the moment where you decided, you know what, I'm not just going to survive this, I'm going to build something for my community? What was that moment that triggered that?
Like I said in the first interview, when it was my sister Cindy's march, that was another dad's vision for his daughter. And so we put my sister's face on it, and at that time meth was just, nobody stood up to it, and everybody wanted to stand up to it. And so we did that. And it wasn't until the following year when I worked with Katrina and her family, because they, a family of mostly women, they worked hard. I mean, they were such a close-knit family, and they tried things that I didn't even think about. And so they were on fire. They were already, you know what I mean, already doing it. And, having Katrina and her family sitting down and all of us brainstorming, you could feel it. You could feel like I didn't feel like I was blindly going into the unknown.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now I have a team that's equally hungry, wants to go. It was at that moment. It was Katrina brought a lot of fire out. My wife, I've always felt with my wife, my sisters, my mom, I always felt like I could do anything. You know what I mean? I always had that support from them. But like I said, when this happened with Cindy, it was all unknown to all of us.
Yeah.
We didn't know what steps to take. And then when me and Katrina got together, it's like we have an idea. And we tackled it, we spearheaded it. And because of that, that's when we got noticed. We got noticed by the groups in Phoenix. First, I got called out to Yuma to speak, and then Valora Nasenhoya and Brandon Nasenhoya from Hung Wunsi Consultant Agency out in Phoenix. What they would do was they would, when the police stopped searching for missing people, they would continue. They would continue and keep searching. They found bones. They found, and they'd go to the parks, and they knew all the spots in Phoenix where, you know, people would be at if they run away, the high prostitution areas where they sell the blues at, and they found a lot of people. And so Valora and Brandon were hungry, and so they connected with me, and more people were, you know, what you notice. Where are the men in this? Where are the men?
Yes.
So the fact that I was a man doing this is what caught everybody's eye, and because it's hard for men. And I say this when I went to ASU, and I've been called to ASU for several different studies, and I've gotten up and I started telling them that the biggest problem for men is that we're cowards, that we can't get past the street law, our street credibility. If somebody murders our sister, our mom, we'll go out there with our sister. But the second they say, well, let's work with the police, the men pull back and say, I ain't a snitch, I ain't a rat. And they leave the women. That's why it's led by women, because women are left, us men, we failed. We're the same men that we can come home and call our other the B word, lazy, a whore, we accuse them of all kinds of things, pull their hair, slap them around, and then in the morning hug them and say, you know, I wouldn't, you know, I love you, I wouldn't do, and they have to. We expect them to forgive us, and 9 times out of 10 they do. And that same woman turn around and call us one name. Oh man, we lose our head and we run around and we want to kill somebody. Mm-hmm. But somebody come in and kill somebody of our family, and it's time for us to stand up and go work with the police and go get some justice. Nope, nowhere to be found. You know what I mean? We tattoo our face. You know, see everybody out there with their face tattooed up. And one word will scare every man: snitch, rat. And that's it. That's all you got to do. That's all a killer's got to do is say, "Ooh, you're a snitch," and that's it. That's it. That's it.
And all you're doing is protecting the perpetrator.
Yes.
You're protecting the person that took your loved one's life. And it's not worth it. That's not a trade-off. If you can have your loved one back, or have this person put in jail to protect other women, because we see from Tiffany's story, Jay attacked her and allegedly probably harmed Rosie. So, you know, if you leave them out there, eventually someone else is going to lose their life.
Yeah.
And it's not worth it.
You know, we have a saying on our one podcast that silence is betrayal. You know, and if you're so worried about being a snitch or a rat, well, that's, you know, that may be the price that you have to pay for you know, uneducated people to think that, you know. But wrong is wrong. You wouldn't be, you know, in that situation that somebody had to say something about what you did if, you know, if you were leading the right kind of life, you know. Like, and Raymond, you have turned things around. You know, I applaud you all day for you know, what you've been able to accomplish.
Yeah. That's what a true warrior does.
Yep.
It doesn't mean we don't fall down, because we all mess up. Nobody's perfect. So, but we change. We make the changes, and they're not always easy. Sometimes we can slip back, but then you keep going forward with those changes. It's a constant inner battle that we all have, that we're going to do better as a person. And by keeping quiet, if someone else loses their life eventually, if these men don't come out and say anything because they're afraid, ooh, someone might point at me and call me a rat, then it's on you, dude. It is on, you are complicit in his crime.
Yep.
Because you just sat there knowing what you knew, said nothing.
Yeah.
You're complicit. And when is it going to stop? When it's your wife, when it's your daughter, when it's your granddaughter. When will enough be enough? And that goes to the people on the council. When is enough enough? When it's your family member?
Oh, yeah.
You know, are you going to be, you know, you lose a family member and you're going to be okay letting someone walk free? Because
it'd be a different story for them.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
And a different story for them.
And doing the street justice doesn't make you a warrior. Being a warrior is the guy that has to sit there in a courtroom, listening to the details, living with it, breathing with it. That's what a warrior does, because he does it within the legal system, which is hard. It is hard. We talk to so many families. It's heartbreaking, but that's what a true warrior does, because you make the example, like you talked about earlier, Raymond, about, you know, a man mistreating his wife, domestic violence. Are you teaching your son how to be a man? Are you teaching your daughters how that they should be treated? If you're not making that example in that home, you have set your daughter up to be abused. You've set your son on a path that this is okay. You know, and that's really what it is. And I think everybody can see by your example and how much you love your beautiful Johnny that, well, number one, she'd take a skillet to your head probably. But, my money's on Johnny.
Can't see on camera, but she's got her canister of mace right now. Her baton.
Yeah. But too, like with people that, you know, if you have information, you know, you really should come forward, because you just might be the person that's calling Raymond for help, because it's going to be your turn. Because every family, at the rate it's going, everybody's going to probably, you know, everyone's going to get a turn worth it being a family member eventually, if nobody's willing to give any information on anything. And if people could just sit there and like know somebody's getting away with something, you know, well, it might be you calling Raymond and saying, my family member, you know, was murdered. Oh, and by the way, you know, I got some information I'd like to tell you about somebody that was involved in one of the crimes here in town, you know, like.
Yeah. And I think that's what Raymond and it was Katrina. Is that, am I saying Katrina? They got, you know, and they made it a family. It's a family thing, the Stand Strong movement, you know, and they've gone forward with this and made it so strong, because when you stay together, when people start knowing this is the person I can call when I need help, because we are hearing of families on different reservations, even that are losing multiple family members. And it's got to stop. It has just got to stop. You know, we got to protect everybody, you know, the children, the women, the men. Everybody needs to be protected. Everybody's precious.
Yeah.
Life means something. So by people just being quiet, you're not being a man or a warrior. Or the true warrior is the woman in the trailer that fought for her life that night, that might have got her tooth knocked out, but she kept the battle going. That's a warrior. You know, Raymond's a warrior for standing up and helping start a movement in Parker, Arizona.
Just like who did I turn to in my situation? I didn't talk to anybody about it, but who did I turn to? I turned to Raymond. And
Yeah.
for a while, the thought of it had, I had been thinking about it and talking to him and saying, come on, you just talk to him, whatever, worrying about, could I trust him? Is he going to repeat anything I said? And just the way he came out, and he came off as such a professional person, genuine, caring, not a gossip. And just what he did for his sister. And, he was doing it for all the sisters, everybody's sister. And then when it was time when Shaggy had, when Shaggy had gotten murdered, that was his other sister, too. And then it was like it turned into like a brother and sister movement here, where everybody's is now reaching out to him, and that just shows you how much you could trust this man. And it just confirmed that I just confirmed my decision to tell him was the right thing to do, because look how everybody is now turning to him for the murders that go on here. And it's like, if people do have information, come forward, because it might be you that is going to be calling him for help, even though you could have prevented it. No, something that already.
Exactly. And that, I think that's one of the important lessons that we talked about tonight is getting the word out, because it starts small, but it keeps building, and hopefully it can go from your reservation to another reservation, and you can see more stand strong together, because that's what you want to see is more people join. It doesn't have to just be in Parker, Arizona. It needs to be everywhere.
Yeah.
Because that's what a tribe is it's a family. You're supposed to be caring about each other. It's supposed to be you lean on each other, not trying to take each other out constantly.
Yeah, and looking out for one another, looking out for one another's children, and the family, and just looking out for each other, not where it's like, everybody's just out for themselves, just.
Yeah. Well, that, and that's what it was, it's like when all the aunties know what you're supposed to be doing and you're not doing, and you get put in your place, and then your mama gets told, and that's how it's supposed to be. Not everyone just being quiet. It's, them calling up and saying, do you know what Junior did? Then you got to go home and face mom. And it doesn't go well.
Unfortunately, we're battling something here that people have a kind of a feeling that it's whatever is going on, it's not going to affect me.
Yeah.
And it's and I keep on saying this over and over, that we have to get rid of this this idea in people's heads that it's not a problem. Well, it just became a problem
When it affected you.
when it affected you.
Yeah, I mean, we just like recently, not that long ago, maybe a year ago, maybe we had our very first child, that is part of MMIP now. We have a 17-year-old boy, and it's like, you got to come forward with this information that you have, because that's going to help in situations where, like, hopefully there's no more children, and no more adults either. But like, that's what happens when you don't speak out, and you can see how people could get away with things like this. The 17-year-old, like, look what happened to him. Had more people came forward and were willing to be, if you want to say, a narc or a snitch, it would have been an example of, that don't do nothing because somebody's going to tell on us. But,
well, we need to get rid of those words, because if you're not doing anything wrong, then no one's going to tell on you.
Yeah.
You up to something, as we like to say in the South. You're up to something.
I always thought to myself, that those words, snitch and rat, well, who popularized those words?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't it wasn't the law-abiding people that popularized that. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it
No.
was the criminal organizations that
Mm-hmm.
popularized that, and if they weren't doing the deed, well, then they wouldn't have
Yeah.
to be told on. You know,
And
Yeah.
it's what is the old saying? You know, snitches get stitches.
yeah,
Yeah.
You know, it's like, but what happened to the saying? If don't do the crime if you can't do the time.
there you go,
Exactly.
there you
Yeah.
If you
go.
can't, you know, it's like it's like so. If you're so big and bad, you know, hey, you know, talk
Yes.
about what you did. What are you hiding it for? You know,
Yeah.
but
Come out of prison with a tear under your eye. Yeah.
yeah.
Tear
Mhm.
tattoo. Yeah. That's acknowledging something without saying the words.
Mhm.
What makes me laugh is when you get to prison and they introduce you to these guys that are all blasted down, biggest buckets one on the yard. Hey, this is a good homie right here. You could trust him. Hey, you know what I mean? He's a professional liar. You know what I mean? It's like he never snitched in his life, so he's a professional liar. He's a professional deceiver.
Mhm.
And then we go home and we're such in a hurry to introduce our girlfriends to this professional liar, like, oh yeah, you could trust him. You know what I mean? And we're so young and so dumb that we take these guys home, these professional liars that never snitched because they're professional liars, and we bring them into our house, introduce them to our mom, our sisters, our girlfriends, and all. You could trust them. You could trust them, and you never even stop to think this guy doesn't have an ounce of truth in him because he's never snitched. He's never told the truth. Because the definition of being a snitch is telling the truth,
Mhm.
being truthful, being honest.
Mhm.
And we glamorize these professional liars and we run with it. It's a new day and age. It's like, when is everybody going to wake up and realize that, you know, the guy who's going to rob you basically made up the rules so he can rob you.
Yeah.
And you abide by it and you stand
Yeah.
by it and you stamp it and you live by it as a code.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy. When you get older, you know what I mean? It starts all wearing off. And man, if I can go back two, 3 prison terms and kick myself, I would. But even then, I still wouldn't listen because you know, I was
You were
hard.
young and dumb.
Yeah, I had. You know, you can't tell me. But
You were in your young and dumb phase.
oh my goodness, yeah.
Deborah Allen said, I support you, Tiffany. You're the strongest lady to withstand what you went through. Your angels were definitely with you. You're safe now, and all that is behind you. Now you can move forward.
Yeah.
So
Thank you, Debbie. I love you, honey. I love you.
And therapist, joined us, which we love. But quickly, let's go over some missing people because this is something we do on every show. Remember, when you guys are out and about, put the cell phones down, look at people's faces. You never know when you might come across someone that's missing because a lot of time missing people are in plain sight. Also, we know children and young ones are being coerced out of their homes and then get in a terrible situation and can't get back home. And we know trafficking is real.
Mhm.
So trust that thing on the back of your neck that starts itching when you see something. Be willing to call 911. Call the tips in if you think you've spotted someone. If you're so nervous, we have an email called tips, the number 4, trialjunkiesunited@gmail.com. We'll turn a tip in. I'm not scared. This is Bree Ironshell. She's 17. She went missing on August 18th
Mhm.
from Rapid City, South Dakota, and she is 5'5", 197 pounds. She has brown hair, brown eyes. She has tattoos. The number 33 is on her left wrist. Strength is on her lower right arm. She was wearing a blue Nike sweatshirt with light blue jeans, and she had a backpack. This is out of Rapid City, South Dakota. Contact the police at 605-394-4131. She's 17. Let's get her home.
Yeah.
This one is going to break your heart. This is Clarice Strongquill. She's 12. She went missing August 18th of 2026 out of Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. She's First Nations. She was last seen at 12:30 a.m. on Denny Crescent Street. She has brown eyes and black, blonde, and blue hair. I'm digging that. Shoulder length. She's 5'3", 155 pounds. Any information on Clarice, contact Regina Police at 306-777-6500 or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. We have our last missing person is Rachel Page Coyote, I think is how they say it. There's 2 O's in there. That's what's throwing me. She's 35. She has been missing since March 1st of 2026 from Anchorage, Alaska. She is 5'3". She has brown hair and brown eyes. She weighs 170 pounds. Contact Anchorage Police Department at 907-786-8900. Her case number 26-0016-028. With any of these also, if they're, because they don't always stay in the same state, call 911 if you think you've spotted them. This is a notification for an annual walk. Kendra Owen Memorial Walk is going to happen tomorrow at 11 a.m. in Watertown, South Dakota. They're honoring Kendra, who was 28. She is Sistaton. She's from the Sioux tribe. I practiced this and then it just went out of my brain how to pronounce her tribal affiliation. I apologize to her mother, Jewel. She was found deceased in her Watertown apartment in 2020. She was murdered, and her family is starting an annual walk to make sure she's never forgotten. She said, "We refuse to let Kendra be forgotten." Her mother said to meet at Doc's bar. Doc, do you have a bar you didn't tell me about?
I see nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
At Lions Park, and there's a free meal after. All are welcome. If you want to donate for the walk, there's a Venmo at Jewel Demarris, Denarrias. There's also a Cash App. I'll have Doc put this in our information. But say her name, Kendra Owen. We're probably going to be talking with Jewel and doing her story soon. But because of the walk, I wanted to get this out. So justice for Kendra, because they haven't got any yet. Remember, you guys, if you see something, say something. That's all we're asking. You know, if you have a flyer that someone wants us to show, we show them on every episode. Send it to us, email, get it to us. We'll be glad to put it up. Tiffany and Raymond, thank you so much for being our guests. Tiffany, any last words you want to share with the audience about just trying to, if you're in a situation that you're scared, how do you make it through?
Give it to God. I mean, really,
Okay.
is
Okay.
one thing. And, for like people, anybody that has any information about anything, even if it's the smallest thing, come forward and help a family, help a mother,
Yeah.
help a father, help, you don't have to live in fear. The fear that you're feeling is more something that you're creating for yourself that
Yeah.
it doesn't really exist. It's just your own imagination of what you think could happen to you if you do come forward with information. I mean, if the person's, the people that do these kind of things that harm people like to this extent, they're cowards,
Yeah.
and it's like I said, I hope that like people that do have information, not to sound harsh, but I hope they have nightmares. I hope they see
Yeah.
that person, and the person that committed the crime and is walking around okay with, living their life. It's like, I hope they're haunted by what they did forever until the day they die.
Yeah. And
Don't
Raymond,
don't let fear and intimidation keep you from coming forward.
Yeah.
Find somebody, find a friend that you could talk to. And if you can't do it, have the friend do it, or somebody do it.
Yeah.
Do information for you. It doesn't have to be you directly, but you could tell somebody, hey, this is what I know, and could you make a phone call for me, on my behalf? And that's
Get the information out there.
Mm-hmm.
And Raymond,
from it.
Raymond, any last things you want our audience to know?
No, I just want to thank you. It's been an honor. Sending all our love and respect to everybody out there from Parker. Everybody continue to stand strong together, and just remember, and nobody's gonna fight harder for your loved one more than you. Keep speaking out. Don't stay silent. Dig your heels in, and you're not the only one. If you need help, we'll help you fight, and I'm gonna walk beside you. And God bless.
Yeah.
And we thank you guys. You're both warriors in our book, because Tiffany survived and Raymond is using his voice for the voiceless out there and for the people that really need it. One of these days, we're going to get his beautiful wife, Johnny, on the show.
Yeah.
She's a detention officer, and I know you guys would be interested in talking to her. And Raymond will probably be back with us. He's lining up some other people that want to tell their story, which we appreciate. So just remember, you guys, these two are survivors. They've both made it through something that most of us can't even imagine. And let's give them our respect for what they've been through. And we want to remember the Stand Strong Together movement. Please join their Facebook group. Get the word out. If you're on another reservation, contact Raymond. Start one on your reservation. But don't forget, every killer and every predator out there depends on your silence. And we're committed to not giving it to them. If you know something, speak up, because that wasn't a mannequin. It never is. Somebody knows something. Somebody always does. And our favorite motto here is silence is betrayal. If we don't hear these stories, we can't make changes. And that's exactly what the bad guys are counting on. Us staying quiet.
Oh, yeah.
So until next time, you guys, stay informed, stay compassionate, keep seeking the truth, and never stop speaking up. Do you want to say goodnight, Doc?
Good night, Doc.
And Moo's still sleeping, you guys. So we love you all, and the criminals never stop, so neither do we. We're going to see y'all on Sunday. Please listen to the song that we have about the Stay Strong or Stand Together. Stand Strong Together movement. And we're going to see you Thursday. So ciao and have a good night, everybody. And thanks for joining us.
Someone took his sister's life, so senseless. Cynthia's name became a battle cry. He couldn't watch his community die. So he gathered the broken and the brave. Said we're done just visiting the grave. Said enough, we're building something new. Out of tragedy, triumph breaking through. No more looking away. No more staying quiet, waiting for a better day. Tribal, non-tribal, we tear the line down. One heartbeat, one family, one town. Stand strong together, we won't bow down. Voice for the voiceless, we're rising now. Against the drugs and the violence, the pain hidden deep. Against the traffic and the silence we won't keep. Bullied and broken, we're lifting you up. Parker against it all, we've had enough. Stand strong together. reaching out, the ones who believe this ain't about where your bloodline runs. It's about protecting daughters, protecting sons. One community, one fight, one call. Stand strong together, we rise for all. No more loss of life, no more tears falling. We hold our women, we hold our children dear. Tribal and non-tribal, we tear that line down. One heartbeat, one family, one town. Stand strong together, we won't bow down. Voice for the voiceless, we're rising now. Against the drugs and the violence, the pain hidden deep. Against the traffic and the silence, we won't keep. Bullied and broken, we're lifting you up. Parker, against it all, we've had enough. Stand strong together. Hey, out of the storm, we rise like fire and feather. Hey, for Cynthia, we carry your light. For every soul lost in the fight, tragedy planted the seed in the ground. Triumph is the sound. Hear it now, it's the sound. Stand up, speak out, stand strong. Stand up, speak out, stand strong. Together. Stand strong together, we won't bow down. Voice for the voiceless, we're rising now. Against the drugs and the violence, the pain hidden deep. Against the traffic and the silence, we won't keep. Bullied and broken, we're lifting you up. Parker, against it all, we've had enough. Stand strong together. Born out of the ashes, we rise like a phoenix. Stand strong together, we rise together. No more silence, no more tears. We hold each other year after year. Stand strong together. Hey, stand strong together. For Cynthia, we rise. For every name we rise. A movement was started, and we won't back down. Stand strong.